Hi everyone. Today I wanted to continue with the new deck that I acquired on Friday called the Revelations Tarot. And the other day I did a 10-card spread, the Celtic Cross, which was pretty complex, and I recorded a video about that one. I thought it was maybe a little bit long, although some people who watched it said not at all. And so anyway, the other day I put all the cards back and was shuffling, and I thought I would just pull one card for a tarot journaling prompt. And I fanned out the deck and was about to choose one card when I decided to choose the one beside it. And this Seven of Wands was the one that came up, and my first reaction when I looked at it was, oh yeah, I'm not sure I want to deal with that card right now, because obviously it's a card of conflict, and I think it's human nature to really not want to look at that kind of stuff, and we like to avoid conflict. Anyway, so there it was. I wasn't going to put it back into the deck, and I was a little confused, like, okay, I've been feeling really good the last few days. I don't see where there could be any conflict. So what I did was I pulled what's often called a clarifier card, which can help give extra information to the card that might be giving you a little bit of trouble. So I chose the card that I was originally going to pull, but ended up pulling the one beside it, which was this one. So the cards were still fanned out, so I pulled the original card that I had selected, and it was Justice. And it was just one of those moments where I laughed and said, okay, well, it doesn't get much better than this in terms of the two cards informing each other. So let me give you a little bit of background first. With the Seven of Wands in the traditional Rider-Waite deck, you have a person who is standing on high ground, battling forces, some type of forces that are challenging them. So this can mean defending an idea, a thought, defending your position on anything, and ultimately standing in your own truth. That's what the Seven of Wands is about. It's about fighting for justice and defending your truth, because your inner knowing has let you know that it's important to you. This truth is important to you. There's integrity involved with this. So we have in the Revelations Tarot, we've got the card in reverse. Oh, I've got a spider on me. So let me just show you this card. It's a bit windy, so I have things here just so the cards don't blow away. Here's the Revelations Seven of Wands. This person here is a warrior, and the person looks like a she to me, so she is standing up for her truth big time. Now when the card comes up reverse, we've got, this looks like doubt, standing still for a moment, not being sure if we have a right to stand up for ourselves and our ideas, if we should even bother. There might even be fear involved here. And what happens when we need to stand in our truth, defend our boundaries, defend our ideas, our ideals, whatever those are, when we need to be defending them and we stop because of hesitation and self-doubt, then we are blocking our movement forward and not honoring our own selves. And that's when trouble starts. So we have a card that is normally defending your truth and standing your ground, in reverse here, looking like hesitation and fear and not doing anything. So when I pulled the clarifying card, Justice, there isn't another card in the deck that could have clarified or matched this card any better. We're dealing with justice here, with ideas of truth, confronting injustices. We're looking at the limitations of earthly laws. We're looking at the evolution of spiritual law, because as I mentioned in my last video, the major arcana cards are dealing with higher forces, bigger forces of nature, rather than just situational, everyday drama. So when we look at these scales here, they're balanced. But quite often, in some tarot decks, some of the older ones especially, we see that the scales are not always balanced. And in this Morgan Greer deck here, this is a good example of the scales not being balanced. In the Sword of Justice here, we know that in life there is so much injustice. We look at Black Lives Matter and the uprising that's been happening, not just in the United States, but in Canada and around the world too. People are tired of injustice, and they need to stand up and fight for what they believe is right, which is normally what's happening in this card, but there's some hesitation here. So what I see, what's really remarkable about the tarot cards, and this has been my experience consistently for the 17 years that I've been using them, is that no matter what you're going through, and whatever cards you pull out of the deck, randomly, seemingly, there's a correlation between the cards and what's going on. So I have to explain my own situation here. A few weeks ago, there was, I have a situation where I'm living in a multiple unit dwelling where some of my neighbors smoke, and I get secondhand smoke inside my home. Sometimes I walk into the living room and it smells like an ashtray. I have spoken to my neighbors, and we've things are better, but what has happened, and it's not just secondhand smoke, it's also scented dryer sheet exhaust, dryer exhaust that is pumping almost directly right into my kitchen. And so let me just say something about secondhand smoke and the VOCs that emit from dryer exhaust. They are known to be toxic. They do contain carcinogens. The WHO World Health Organization has officially released a statement long ago that there is no safe level of exposure to secondhand smoke. And with the VOCs, dryer exhaust, that's one area that is not regulated, whereas exhaust from cars and chimney stacks within industry, those things are regulated. Those are known toxins, but the VOCs, like dryer exhaust, is not regulated. So what's happening is I did a lot of research to find out what I could do about it. And I couldn't be mad at my neighbors because they're really making an effort. But this is bigger than just neighbor relations. So what I found out in my 2 weeks of research is that the assumption I had that Canadians have a right to breathe clean, safe air, and that right was protected by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, I discovered that, it's the Canadian Human Rights, oh wait a second, I've got so many here. Yeah, the Canadian Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. Canada, as of 2016, Canada was one of only about 12 countries out of over 120 that still had not changed its laws to protect the environment, protect the air, protect the water, protect its citizens so that we are safe from poison air and poison water. I was shocked. We technically do not have a right to breathe clean, safe air and drink clean, safe water. It's not entrenched anywhere in the Canadian Constitution or the Charter of Rights. So I had to go provincial and look at this. And what I discovered in my research is I'm looking at how many people are being affected by this. In Ontario, there are over 2 million people living in apartments and condos, rental units. Over 2 million people living in multi-unit dwellings. I think a train is coming, I might have to pause. And those people really don't have any protection. So the next level of law to go to is there's the Human Rights Code Ontario, which doesn't cover that either. I'm back. I had to pause that for the big loud rumbling train that just went by. So the Human Rights Code Ontario has embedded within it, I believe, the Smoke-Free Ontario Act of 2017. So in my research, I was looking for evidence and ammunition to use to bring to the government, because I believe that it's something that really needs to be regulated at the government level and not left up to neighbors to be arguing and fighting and having drama about problems that are regulated in other areas of the law except where people live. So, for example, in the Smoke-Free Ontario Act 2017, workplaces, restaurants, hospitals, medical buildings, all types of buildings, playgrounds, shared spaces, all of those are protected and regulated by the Smoke-Free Ontario Act. Where it comes to people in their homes experiencing unwanted air pollution, indoor air pollution from smokers and whatnot inside their own homes. The law, the Smoke-Free Ontario Act 2017, kind of shirks its responsibility and puts it on the shoulders of landlords. Now, some landlords in Ontario, especially in Toronto and probably Ottawa, other large urban centers, have realized that there's a high demand for smoke-free homes and dwellings. In fact, there have been surveys, and they've found that 80% of Ontarians would prefer to have smoke-free housing. There's a lot of smokers in that 80% demographic, but there is a woeful shortage of smoke-free housing in Ontario. So families, children, the elderly, people with medical health situations are living in these circumstances, and there's really no protection for them. So what happens is, if your problem is pretty serious, you have to approach, and your landlord is not doing anything about it. And in my case, there was no clause in the lease. Now, landlords in Ontario are allowed to legally include a clause within their lease. It's legal and enforceable, and this clause stipulates that there's no smoking on balconies, patios, and shared areas in multiple unit dwellings. So in that case, the landlord provides sheltered smoking area away from the buildings. So imagine you have a bunch of balconies, and nobody wants to be on their balcony and get smoked out, or on their patio and get smoked out by your neighbors 10 feet away from you. So it makes sense. And so in the case of many landlords, including my own, they just don't want to enforce that type of clause within their leases, or they don't know that they're legally allowed to. And so in the case of my landlord, he just throws up his hands and says, well, there's nothing I can do about the smokers. Like, I can talk to them if it gets to that point, if they haven't, if your talking to them hasn't helped. So in any case, like I was saying, in my situation, it's better than it was, but it's not perfect. And it's summertime, and I don't want to have to shut myself in, close the windows, and not be able to use my patio, because my neighbors are out there smoking. So that's what these cards are talking about. So I spent 2 weeks researching and writing and studying the law and seeing where Canadian law stands on this, where Ontario law stands on this. So what I want is safe living conditions for all Ontarians living in multiple unit dwellings. I think in a lot of cases, what happens is the smoke is coming into people's units from smokers. Let's say in a high-rise, people smoking within their apartments, and it's somehow getting through the cracks, entering other people's homes. So my situation isn't that bad. It comes in through my windows, sometimes up to 10 times a day. But a lot of people have it worse than me. And so what happens when you go to the landlord and tenant board, they assign an arbitrator to investigate the situation. So what I've discovered is that it's really hard to win a case. First of all, the complainant has to prove with a doctor's note that they have a pre-existing medical condition and that the secondhand smoke coming into their unit is adversely affecting their existing health condition. That makes absolutely no sense to me. We know that secondhand smoke causes cancer, causes asthma, causes all kinds of health problems. So, yeah, I just don't think that the Landlord and Tenant Board is the appropriate venue to be dealing with this type of issue where every medical health authority in the world has declared that there is no safe level of exposure. The Landlord and Tenant Board was designed to deal with regular run-of-the-mill problems that landlords and tenants might have, dealing with repairs, unlawful eviction, landlords having trouble evicting tenants who absolutely need to be evicted. There are all types of situations, but where secondhand smoke in your own home, in your bedroom, in your kitchen, in your living room when you're reading a book or watching television, there's no protection. There are no laws to protect us from that. So it's left up to these arbitrators from the Landlord-Tenant Board, who can apparently come for a home visit and can conduct what they call a sniff test. So if your neighbors aren't home and they're not smoking, I read a lot of case studies on a particular website. Did I write it down? Smoke-free Ontario, I think, is the smokefreehousing.ca, I think, is the website. Case studies where the arbitrator came over, did a sniff test, didn't smell anything, and dismissed the case. Meanwhile, for the however number of other hours there are in the day, there was secondhand smoke. Also, cases dismissed because the arbitrator claimed that yes, it does smell like secondhand smoke, but the complainant is too sensitive to it. It's not a big deal. In other cases, the arbitrator ruled against the complainant because they said, yeah, it smells like secondhand smoke here, but it's not really affecting you that much. You're not sensitive enough, so we're dismissing this case. It's arbitrary. The arbitrator is arbitrarily, different arbitrators, arbitrarily making decisions that are affecting people's lives. We live in a housing crisis right now, 2020. Affordable housing is becoming scant. Basement apartments are going for $1,200. Townhouses are going for, half-decent townhouses are going for $2,400 a month. Most average people cannot afford that. This is a serious problem. So if you're in a situation where smoke is disturbing, what is the expression? It's called when neighbors make too much noise, ongoing noise. One of the grounds you can file with the Landlord and Tenant that you're experiencing a breach of the covenant for quiet enjoyment. Barking dogs, loud parties all the time, and they put secondhand smoke under that category. So essentially what I'm saying is that this is a fight that I started some weeks ago, and I've got drafts of letters that I'll be sending to local MPPs, even to the MPs. This situation, I believe that the Smoke-Free Ontario Act 2017, that covers every other aspect of life except inside your own home, where some people may spend up to 300 hours per month. You might go to a restaurant once a month or once a week, and you are protected out on the patio. People can't smoke by law within 9 meters of the patio during that 1 hour a month or 1 hour a week that you're there. But in the 300 hours on average that you spend in your home, sleeping, eating, living, doing all the things that you do, you are not protected. So I really feel that this is, it's probably to challenge the province, and to even challenge the Canadian Constitution for not protecting Canadian citizens' rights to clean and safe air, etc. This is so big, and that's what I'm talking about. This is not a little townhouse to townhouse problem between neighbors and neighbors. This is huge. It's a case of discrimination, in my opinion, for the smoke-free bylaws and laws that are enforceable to protect almost every conceivable situation you can think of except where you live. So these cards, and this is what I'm talking about with the tarot, whatever things you're going through, whatever situations may be happening in the foreground or the background, you take a deck of tarot cards, shuffle them, do what you do, calm and center yourself. You may meditate on a current situation or not, and then you pull a card. You pull a card out of the deck, a 78 card deck, and something like this comes up that completely speaks to a situation that is very real in your life right now. So all of that research I was doing, looking up the laws, reading case studies, researching the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Ontario, the Human Rights Code of Ontario, the Smoke-Free Ontario Act 2017, the Landlord and Tenant Board and what their rules and regulations are. It was exhausting. I'm not going to dance around the subject. It was time consuming. I was becoming obsessed and spending 5, 6, 7 hours a day reading and researching and looking into all of this stuff, because I believe that there needs to be justice in this situation. It's not right. It's not right to be stuck in the sanctity of your own sacred space and to be getting poisoned by unwanted toxins. I'm not, okay, I have to say that I'm not against smokers. Everybody has the freedom to do whatever they want. It's their choice, it's your choice. It's fine. One thing I did discover, I thought everybody says it's their right to do this and that. I discovered that within the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, or was it the Human Rights Code of Ontario, there is no law anywhere in any of those codes and acts that says a smoker has a right to smoke. It's a freedom. So smokers have the freedom to smoke, but I am really adamant that it's my right. It is my right. It's not just my freedom to have clean, safe air. It's my right to be able to have clean, safe air in my home every day and to not be exposed to secondhand smoke and carcinogens. I do have asthma. I did have bronchitis as a child because my mother smoked in the house, raising 4 kids. It was hard. And my brother Bert had bronchitis really bad. We all had health issues. When I was working in a program for at-risk youth in Vancouver for 6 years, we had a small storefront in South Vancouver, just a little storefront, and we had kids there that were on probation and living in group homes and so on, attending every day. My boss was a smoker, so was another staff member, and my boss smoked nonstop in there. The air was blue. All the teenagers were smoking. We'd have, on average, maybe 12 to 18 kids in there. And I asked him on a few occasions if he could please, like, not smoke inside. And he said, Michelle, if I made a rule where these kids can't smoke indoors here, none of them will come. They're kids who do not function well within the institutional settings of schools and so on. So he kept smoking, they kept smoking. I went through one pregnancy there. It was pretty awful. When I got home every day, I had to throw my clothes in the laundry, have a shower, wash my hair. Even my glasses smelled like smoke. I had to just clean all of that off of me every day. 6 years of that. And by the way, my boss, who was a great man and one of my first mentors, ended up getting lung cancer and having a lung removed. And restaurants in those days, being in restaurants. I remember going to one of our favorite restaurants. I was quite pregnant, and we asked for the non-smoking section. That's the way it was in those days. And we were seated at a table at the back of the restaurant, 3 feet away from a table with a group of smokers sitting there. So there was no separation. Smoking, non-smoking section. It was bullshit. So here I am, 62 years old, and we're still dealing with this. And it's a fight that's worth fighting. because it's the right thing to do for everybody, for the over 2 million Ontarians living in multiple unit dwellings, townhouses, apartments, condos. When we talk about the sword of justice here, this is a major arcana card. It's not, it's in a way, it's related to the minor suit of swords, because you have the sword of justice here. And swords represent the mind and logic and thought processes. The swords represent mental clarity, the intellect, thought, reason, mental energy. It's concerned with justice, truth, ethical principles, communication. It's so important. And so while I've taken a break from all the research and the writing and all that passion and energy going into that, these cards are telling me, like, okay, Michelle, you did all of that work. Yeah, you've kind of learned to tolerate this smoke in your own home, but there's all those families in Ontario who are suffering through this and being poisoned against their will. It's something that needs to be challenged. It probably is the type of case that needs to go to court when you're challenging laws in the province and the country. Those are things that are decided in courts of law at great expense. And it's a monumental task, and I am up for it, but I can't do it by myself. I need a team, probably, and I'm going to need a lot of help, and I don't even know if it's going to make a difference in the long run. If it's a thing that needed to be decided in court. We know that these cases take years, and then there are appeals, and then more years. And by that time I'll be like in my 80s, probably, and we'll still be dealing with this situation. But we can't give up fighting a fight that is right and just. This is for everybody. And it's important. So that's basically what I wanted to say, which is I was surprised when these cards came up. And I thought it was just going to be a little brief thing, and it ended up being a really huge thing. My last video was pretty long, but that was a 10-card spread. This started out with one card and a clarifier, but the topic is huge. So, yeah, I've got my work cut out for me, and it's important. It's not just the secondhand smoke, it's the scented dryer sheets with formaldehyde and all kinds of other deadly hazardous chemicals in them. It's we need to launch an educational campaign. I'm always surprised when I talk about how toxic dryer sheets are, and so many people have said, really? I didn't know about that. I had no idea. So surprisingly, the information has been out there for over a decade, but it's not widely known. And we as a society are poisoning ourselves. And I am fed up. I just can't stand by and continue to get poisoned against my will, and to say nothing, do nothing about this situation. There needs to be justice one way or another. And there may not be in the long run, because we know that in this world, very often getting justice is not something that happens for a lot of people in all kinds of horrible situations. But this is the big picture, and this is it. Thank you for watching. I wish you a blessed day, free of toxins, free of poisons, free of all that is not for your best and highest interest.